Welcome to the KidMin podcast with Dr. Val and Dr. Virginia, where we talk about everything KidMin
and pull back the curtain on some of the surprises and challenges in children's ministry that nobody prepares you for.
I'm Dr. Val, and together we have over 45 years of experience in children's ministry.
I'm Dr. Virginia. Valerie and I met over 10 years ago in our doctoral program at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. We are excited to share with you all the great stuff that we have picked up over the years. We want to minister to you, the children's minister.
Welcome, friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. Dr. Virginia and I are always just excited to talk about opportunities that we have as a church family to minister to our community. And one of the things that we started talking about over the last couple of weeks with school getting going and all the things of our kids and our grandkids are back in school and just had that kind of fall kickoff on our minds, we started talking about ways in the past that our churches have partnered with schools in the community to be able to minister to the families in our area and really to be able to share the love of Jesus with the administration and the staff and the teachers and our kids and their families. And so we just thought that we would spend a little bit of time talking about how we have in the past partnered with local schools. And it really has changed a lot over the years for me.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
When I first started ministry, when I first started as a children's minister, it was much easier to be able to interact and to participate in our local schools. I often would, meet our kids at their school for lunch and have a lunch with the kids, or they would invite me in to come speak or to do things. And so I was always very active in the local schools around the church. But over the years, that has changed a lot, at least in the communities where I have served and where I've lived, where the church really doesn't have the access to be able to help in the schools in the same way. So I think that we do have to be very just creative and very thoughtful according to our community and our school systems to find ways that we as the church can partner with the administration and the staff to really help try to impact as many of our kids in our community as we can.
Because I think one of our greatest opportunities is to have our administrators and teachers and leaders at the schools to view our church as a resource for their kids and their families, and view us as being, supportive of them and wanting to see their students succeed and wanting to, help the teachers and be a blessing to the teachers. And so, I think we just have this opportunity for our churches to be seen as resources and encouragement and investing in our schools and in the lives of the kids and families, in our local schools.
Right, right. Well, we just thought we would just go over, like I said, some of the things that we've done in the past. And I think just the first thing that we need to always have at the top of our list is prayer. I think that we as a church should be actively praying for the schools in our community, for the schools that our kids attend, and just being very intentional with the way that we can encourage our families, our kids, and our parents to be praying for the school system.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about this maybe in a back to school episode or at some point before the start of the school year, prayer walking schools. And I know that's one thing that our church, and I'm sure lots of other churches do, is we'll break up into teams and prayer walk several of the schools in our area. We don't go inside, we just stay outside, and we always get permission before we go. But just before the start of the school year, just prayer walking our schools, for the kids and the teachers and everyone who's going to be coming onto that campus throughout the year.
Right. Well, and that is a lot like you just said. A lot of times we have done the outside prayer walks. We used to be able to go into the schools and to pray before the start of school, before the kids were there. And I think that that's something you can kind of talk with the school administrator about and see, because we used to have people that would go in and pray over lockers and pray over desks and do that kind of thing. But I think that even if we're just doing those prayer walks where we're just walking around the school building and we're just intentionally letting the leadership there know that we're praying
Mhm.
for them and that we're thinking
Mhm.
about them. I
Mhm.
think also really encouraging your teachers. I was listening to Annie Downs talk the other day on she was speaking at her church, and she was talking about when she was a school teacher, and she was saying that they had to do lice checks every morning
Mm. Oh,
with their kids.
wow. Oh, wow.
And so she said that was like the first 30 minutes of the
Yeah.
day while the kids were working, they had to walk around, and she said that as a believer working in a public school, what she did
Yeah.
was as she went around and as she was checking the
Mhm.
kids, she was just silently praying for each one.
Mhm.
And I know as a
Yeah.
teacher, a lot of times as I would be, setting up desks or cleaning desks or doing, I would
Mhm.
would be at each desk and I would be praying for each child. So I think just encouraging our teachers to remember just the
Mhm.
impact that just
Mhm.
praying for their kids can have. For them
Mhm.
to find those moments, while they're in the classroom, even though they can't pray out loud, even though they can't pray with their
Mhm.
kids, for them to be praying for their kids
Mhm.
in those meaningful moments when you have those moments that you can pray over your classroom. And so I think just encouraging our teachers and letting them know, if you can let me know when you do that, or if you can let me know when you might have a time of day that you would like me to be praying with you,
Mhm.
so that just
Yeah.
from your own office you can be supporting
Mhm.
those teachers as they pray and encouraging them
Mhm.
to find those ways, because we do forget the power of prayer sometimes and the power of praying for somebody when they
Yeah.
don't know it and we're not praying out loud for them. But I think that
Mhm.
that's a really important thing for us to do. I think that that goes back to making sure that you know what schools your kids attend,
Mm.
because you can kind of know where your kids are located in your community, but to know which schools they attend so that you're familiar with which actual school buildings your kids are, even though we can't
Mhm.
go do the lunches and things like we used to be able to do, but just to be able to know where are our kids, what
Mhm.
schools are our kids a part of, where are our kids going to be during the day, so you know that, so that way when you're trying to decide what schools you are going to partner with,
Mm.
because obviously
Mhm.
we can't partner with every school in our community, especially if you live in a
Mm.
larger community. But I always felt like that if we could find out not just the closest school to our school building, which I think is beneficial for us to find, this is the closest elementary school, this is the closest middle
Mm.
school, this is the closest high school to our church, so that we can say,
Mhm.
okay, we're going to partner with these because we're actually in that community, we're in
Right.
that neighborhood. These are the schools that are closest to us. But also just to be familiar with, we also have kids that are attending these schools, so that you're
Mhm.
praying for these specific schools. So you're praying for your kids. So if something happens,
Mm.
that you're aware that you've got
Mhm.
kids in that school. If they
Mhm.
are on the news, if something's going on at that school, so that
Right.
you're aware that you have them, but also so that maybe you can go to ball games, or maybe you
Mhm.
can catch those school events that the community is welcome to come to, that
Mhm.
does give you the opportunity to be able to spend some time with them, to see your families in a different setting, to be
Mhm.
able to show the support for your kids.
It's funny mentioning seeing your families in a different setting. I went to a coffee shop just this morning and saw, some preschool parents,
Uh-huh.
from my church, and, like, the dad
Ah,
kinda laughed, and he was like, "What are you doing out here? I'm seeing you in the wrong place, like, I'm not supposed to see you outside the
worlds
church."
colliding. It's like,
Yes, yes.
but
Ah.
you know what? It really does have a big
Mhm.
impact, because one, I think that they see you as a real person.
Yes.
Like, I can remember whenever, our daughter's friends would come over to our house, like, if they were coming for the weekend, and I would answer the door, in my glasses and my sweatpants, and I would open the door and the kids would be like, "Mrs. Davidson." Like, "You don't look like you normally look," like, it was just that, "Wow,
Ah.
she's a real person." She, like, she, and so
Yeah.
I think that that is, fun when they can do that. But I have just always been, and I think we've talked about this before when we've talked about maybe, working with more challenging kids that are in your ministry, finding ways to make connections. And we've talked about, if we can go to a ball game, if we can go to a
Mhm.
school event, to the school fall festival, if we can just attend as a member of the community, as a regular human
Mhm.
being, it gives the kids the opportunity to make more of a connection with us than
Mhm,
just what's happening inside the church walls.
mhm,
And we do build that relationship and we start to get to know them a little bit better. And you can have those conversations that you would normally have in church, but it
mhm,
also gives you something to mention to them when they're coming into the church building as well. Hey, it's great to see you. Your ball game was awesome. It was great that you
mhm.
scored the shot, or, like whatever it is that you've seen and done to be able to do. And it's the same for like Christmas programs and dance recitals.
Mhm,
Anytime you have, and I know it's hard to hit those
mhm,
kinds of things, and you do have to be very intentional about it because you don't
mhm.
want to just hit one and not hit others. So you want to make sure
Right.
you're spreading yourself out throughout the community. But
Mhm,
just to be a little bit more intentional about thinking, okay, I could go to this event. I could
mhm.
see this ball game, especially if it's like, for example, if you have, you know, like here in town, we have some big rivalries in the high schools because there's 3 that are the main
Yeah.
high schools, and so you can actually hit just one ball game
Mhm.
and see kids from
A
2
bunch
different
of
high
'em.
schools. Yeah, so,
Mhm,
it's that kinda thing where you're thinking through, "Oh, wait, this way
mhm,
I can see people, I can make these connections, I can do this," and not overwhelm yourself with having to go.
mhm,
You don't have to go to every one of them, you don't have to go to a million of
mhm,
them, but it's just finding those
mhm,
ways to connect.
mhm,
I think when you are looking at your opportunities for how you can partner with the school, one of the very first things that you should do is to see if you can meet with the principal of
mhm,
that school.
mhm, mhm,
Once you determine these are the closest schools to our church, these are the community schools that I feel like we need to partner with,
mhm,
make that phone call, connect with the principal, ask if you can meet with them to
mhm,
find out
mhm,
how can we help you.
mhm,
What can we do? What are the greatest needs for your
mhm,
school? What are your greatest needs supply wise? What are your greatest needs volunteer wise? What is it that you need the most so that you can meet them where they are
mhm.
and not kind of come in and say, "Oh, well, we want to do this, 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 and this," and kind of,
And they're like,
have
"We don't
that
need that."
like, yeah,
Yeah.
but really say, what are some of your greatest
Mhm,
needs? Now, if they say, "Well, I don't know, we're good," which I've had, meetings like that
mhm,
before where they're like, "No, we're good. We don't." Then that's a great time for you to offer, "Well, we would like to do,
mhm,
A, B, or C." But if you can start off with building that relationship and letting them know, like what you said earlier, we consider ourselves part of this community. We would
mhm,
love to partner with you and be an assistance to you, to help you, to be able to encourage you and to be here for you. How can we best do that? And
mhm,
it's going to be different according to your community because, like I said, some communities are very different than others. Some still allow a lot of interaction between the two,
mhm,
some do not. And so it gives you that opportunity to find out where you stand, what they think, what they need, and then you can kind of move
mhm,
from there.
mhm. And with our church, we've got a couple different like guidance counselors, resource counselors in some of our local schools that we partner with. Those guidance counselors are the point person
Yeah,
for our church.
right.
They are the ones that let us know of what the needs are, what we can do
Mhm.
to help.
Yeah.
In particular, one of the things that we do, and I've been at churches who have done this different ways of helping with school supplies during back to school time.
Okay.
At my current church, we are actually families sign up with the school if they need help, need assistance with their back to school supplies. And then we get information from the schools about a whole family of, the ages of kids, their school supply lists. We even get their clothing sizes and shoe sizes. And for these particular families, provide really everything the kids would need to go back to school. We have an event at our church where we have haircuts, even. And so we give them their clothing and school supplies and haircuts and new shoes,
Mhm.
everything that family that's at that school, everything that they need to go
Right.
back to school.
Yeah.
I've been in another church that has done it where it was an open event to the community, and we just gave away everything we had until
Mhm.
people stopped coming or we ran
Right.
out. Which
Yeah.
thankfully I don't think we ever ran out. I think we just gave it away until people stopped coming.
Right.
Um, and so those are a couple different ways. I know that you can also partner with schools to, give the needed supplies directly to the school. So knowing those specific needs from the counselors helped us be more strategic in our school supply collection.
Oh, yeah. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand is the number of kids that first, come into school and they can't afford. And
Mhm.
it's really easy to think because I've served in both places. I've served
Mhm.
in areas that where, the families did not have a lot.
Mhm.
I've served in communities where people did have a lot, but
Mhm.
even in those communities where there are a lot of people who have a lot, there are a
Mhm.
lot of kids in those communities that do not.
Mhm.
And so we just
Mhm.
assume, "Oh, well, that neighborhood's, is wealthy." Not
Right,
necessarily everyone in the
right.
neighborhood is wealthy. And so there's always
Yeah.
that need for those kids that can't afford school supplies at the beginning of the year because those lists are pretty expensive when you start looking at all the pieces to it.
Yes.
And so there are a
Yes.
lot of kids who have that need, but also I don't think a lot of people realize how much the teachers purchase themselves for their
Mhm.
classrooms.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I know that, like, for example, I know I've mentioned before when we moved here, I no longer had an office. And I had just boxes of, items that I used in a classroom over the years, like
Mhm.
in a school, because I was a teacher and I was a principal. And so I had all of these storage boxes full of just school supplies and
Stuff.
border for bulletin boards and
All the
all of these
stuff.
kind of random things. And so when we moved
Ah.
to Cleveland, I didn't have room for it all because I no longer had an office that I could store
Mm.
things in. Our house here doesn't have a lot of storage. And so it just killed me. But I said at some point, I told Liz, I was like, I've got to figure out what to do with the stuff. And it was just
Mhm.
all things that could be, Sharpies and like just, all
Yeah.
things that could be used, and I was like, "I'm not exactly sure what to do," but I have a friend here who's been a teacher in the school system here locally for many, many years, and I called her and she was like, "I can be there tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "But it's just I mean, it's not really," and she was like, I'm good. I'll be there tomorrow." And so she came with her van and she loaded
Mhm.
all of those boxes up. And I mean, I'm talking about for the next year, because I get together with those
Mm.
friends every month, but she just kept telling me, "You don't know how much." Our
Mm.
teachers are still talking about how
Aw.
much they were able to use from your stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, and some of it was 10, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so, but they still, they needed all of those notebooks and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so I think that we kind of forget sometimes how much teachers
Mhm.
need and how much they
Mhm.
have to pay for themselves. So even
Mhm.
if your school isn't interested in you purchasing items for kids to,
Mhm.
giving items, I can almost guarantee you that they would be very welcome for things for their own supply
Mhm.
closets, for their own teachers, you
Mhm.
know, finding ways that you can meet those needs are huge. And so,
Mhm.
finding ways that you can, especially at the start of school, providing those supplies, providing backpacks, doing those kind of drives. I think that, anytime we can like maybe offer to bring snacks for teacher
Mhm.
orientation,
Mhm.
for those meeting days before the kids are in the school, to say, "Can I bring you some trays of bags of chips and fruit and candy and chocolate and just that kind of, bottles of water?"
Mhm.
And we did that at our church last year.
Mhm.
And we actually, our church meets in a middle school. And
Mhm.
so we had the opportunity to provide breakfast for the very first in-service day. And it was so great because we just had donuts and muffins and coffee and orange juice and water. And as the teachers came in, as they were coming down the row, we just asked them, did they have anything that they'd like us to pray for? And I mean, I got the opportunity to pray with so many teachers that were like, "Oh,
Mhm.
yes, this is
Oh,
going on in my life.
yeah.
This is going on, and so we just had it was just the greatest time. And like I said, there
Mhm.
were no kids in the building. It was just the teachers, but we had that opportunity to be able to provide them breakfast and to pray with them. And so finding those opportunities, especially at the beginning of the
Mhm.
school year, before the kids even come into the building, I think are huge.
Mhm.
You really have to take time to get to know the administration of a
Mhm.
school and let them get to know you in your heart, to know that
Mhm.
you don't have any kind of an agenda, that
Mm,
you're not
mhm.
trying to find a way to come in and teach or to hand out flyers or to do
Mhm,
any of those things. That's not what your
mhm,
purpose is. But just to
mhm,
let them know that, you know, we just want to partner with you and meet you where you are and do whatever it is that you need us to do. How can we help
mhm.
you? How can we encourage you? How can we be a part? And I think that when you take time to do that, when you show them
Yeah.
over time, they begin to see that you are very sincere in what you're doing and you
Mhm,
don't have any kind of agenda and you're not trying to push anything on them, but you really are truly just trying to be part of their community. Another way that you could possibly minister to the school that's in your community is by offering to volunteer. If you've got the time to be able to volunteer to tutor
mhm,
or to volunteer to be a substitute or to volunteer to help with a fall festival, or if you have church members that can volunteer to be a
mhm,
substitute and just let them know that you're part of the community in that way, that you're just wanting to help them, you're wanting to help with fundraisers, or you're willing to just volunteer
mhm,
and be there. Sometimes schools just need people that are willing to change a bulletin board
mhm,
or, just to do something simple to, to help teachers with making copies or to, just there are so many little things that schools need, so many opportunities.
mhm,
If you are trying to build a relationship with the administration, if you are trying to get to know them and to let them know that you're sincere, volunteering is a great way to do it. And I know that
mhm,
that takes time and not everybody has the time to be able to do that. But if you
mhm,
are looking for a way to build that relationship and
mhm.
be able to have more opportunities to minister, volunteering is a great way to do that.
Mhm. And then there may be people in your church, because you personally may not be able to do that, but there may be people in your church who do have availability,
Right,
during the daytime and who can go and volunteer and be that sort of connection point with your local school.
right.
So even if it's not you, there could be others in your church who would be,
Mhm.
who'd love to do that.
Oh, yeah. One of the other ways that I have in the past worked with our schools, there are a lot of organizations that are in your community that are already volunteering and helping your school system out. We had a ministry in our community that created this program that parents could sign up for if there was a food need for their
Mhm,
family.
mhm,
And so what they would provide is that they would make snack bags and food bags for the kids, things
mhm,
that didn't need refrigeration, things
mhm,
that were very easily, chips and fruit cups and Vienna sausages and that kind of thing, things that could go very easily into a bag. And actually, when the family signed up for it, the school didn't have to even know who the kids were that were receiving the assistance. So, like, it wasn't like they came into the classroom and the kids received these bags. They literally would place them in lockers so that the kids would
mhm,
just have them for lunchtime or they would have them
mhm,
for to take home. Most of the time, this was for snacks for during the day or food to take home at night.
mhm,
Was the
mhm.
idea behind the ministry. And so they would deliver these bags and put them in the lockers. And then that way the kids, their friends didn't know they were receiving them and they had this opportunity to have food to take home. And so our church partnered with that ministry a lot where
Mhm,
we would collect items to take to them, food items and things that they needed for donation. We also would actually I took the kids a lot
mm,
to help them put together those bags. Like we might go on a
mhm,
Wednesday night and
mhm,
we would actually go and fill bags or sort
mhm,
or clean help clean their supply rooms and things so that way we were ministering to that ministry that was ministering to
mhm,
our school system. And so finding the things in your community, like for example, we also had when I lived in Nashville, I know the Titans organization would collect winter coats to hand out to the school
mhm,
system. And so
mhm,
we would actually sometimes take kids to the stadium. One of our parents was on staff with the Titans, and they would have us come and I would bring kids and we would just sort coats. We
mhm,
would collect coats at the church, we would take them, and then we would go and help them sort into sizes and to sort into bags to be able to take to deliver to the local schools. So there's all sorts of different things that your community already does to support the school
mhm,
system and to support your local schools. So finding ways that your church can partner with those programs to help just gives the opportunity for more people to be able to do something for your school system. One of the ways that I've partnered with schools in the past has also been to prepare appreciation gifts for the teachers, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout the year. maybe do some little gift cards or something special at Christmas, or usually schools will have a teacher appreciation week.
Mhm.
And so to offer to bring in snacks or something for that,
Mhm.
or to do a little thank you gift for the teachers during that week. But again, just to let them know that we're here, that we're praying for them, that we're supporting them, has always been a great opportunity to make those connections and to build those relationships as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and whenever we bring our meals to the schools, because we have a few different schools that we like to partner with, and we'll bring them throughout the year, and we
Mhm.
brought them during Teacher Appreciation Week in the past as well. Um, so we've kind of spread out those meals that we've done at the different schools that we like to partner with throughout the year, including that Teacher Appreciation Week. So,
Yeah, yeah. Another way that I know that churches can be a huge impact for our school system is to offer to be an evacuation point if there's ever
mhm,
an emergency. This is something that usually needs to be set up through your local county or your city school system to see if there is a school, especially if you have one that's in very close proximity. Like if you have a school that's across the street or just
mhm,
a few businesses down from you, you might be a
mhm,
wonderful location for the schools to be able to use your building as an evacuation site or an emergency site for parents to come to, for the community to come to offer assistance. And so that's something that you do have to work out, obviously, ahead of time, because you never know when something might happen. And you want to make sure you have the resources and the staff on site available. Um, as Virginia and I were talking about this episode earlier, I mentioned I had heard in the news too about a church that had made an agreement to be an
mhm,
evacuation point so many years before an event actually happened, that the
mhm.
day of an emergency, no one on staff was still there that knew that they had agreed to be an evacuation point. So they were very surprised by it. So that might be
Yeah.
something that you want to make sure that you check out. Has your church at any point made an offer to be an evacuation point for a school in your area so that you are prepared for it? But I think it is another way to be able to say, our building is for our community.
Mm,
We are here
mhm,
to serve. And if there is a way that we can do that, if we can offer to have meetings here or have in service meetings, in your building, if
mhm,
you have a large enough building. I know that one of the large churches here in our county has the actual county teachers meeting. Like, so when they have
mhm,
the teachers meetings for the entire school system, they actually
mhm,
meet at one of the churches here in town because they
mhm,
have a large enough facility for everybody to
mhm,
come for them to have their meetings. And so it's just a great way for the church to
mhm,
be able to be there to welcome and to thank our teachers for what they do and our administrators for what they do, and to be able to say, you know what, our church building is not just for our church. Our church building is here for the entire community, and we're here to support our teachers and to support our administrators. And so I think it's a great way for us to find things that we can uniquely do as a
mhm,
church family to minister to the schools in our area.
mhm. Yeah, in our church, we have a larger auditorium or larger, sanctuary for our church,
Mhm.
and so a little bit in December, but then definitely in May we host several, concerts,
Mhm.
performances, musicals, graduations, and so we end up hosting quite a few of these events for the school system because we are, just like you said, we're one of the few
Mhm.
facilities in our area that can accommodate some of these larger events.
Right.
And so we do that gladly, just like you said, as a way to support our schools and to open up our facilities to them and
Mhm.
and just be a blessing. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Well, and I think that that's what's so great. Your community, your church building, what you have to offer,
Hmm.
your church family and what they have the ability to be able to give and the ability to be able to do. And so you can find your own unique ways of
Hmm.
being able to reach out. But I think as children's ministers, it's important for us to show our kids that we care about where they spend the majority of their
Hmm.
day, that we
Hmm.
care about things that matter to them, and that we
Hmm.
are in this relationship where we want to know them and know about their school and know about what they're doing and be a part of their lives outside of just the four church walls. I think it's really
Hmm.
important for us to do that. And obviously, I tend to be more passionate about education because of my background in education and because of what I've done my entire career. But it is just a wonderful opportunity to show our kids how much we care about them when we show them how
Mhm.
much we care about their school. And
Mhm.
so I think that it's just vitally important for us to find opportunities that to partner with our school system to let them know that we want to be part of our community. Well, thank you, friends, so much for joining us today. Thank you for being part of this conversation. We would love to hear how you partner with schools in your community. Give us some different ideas. Give us some information about how you have found to be a part of your school community. We would love to know. And as always, we would ask that you would like and subscribe and all the things. We are just so grateful for you and so grateful for you taking time to listen and being
Mm.
with us today. We hope you have a wonderful week and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye bye.